invited to a murder. Arlington Grange, home of Mrs. Peacock, self-styled lady of the manor, who's anxious to preserve the quality of village life and her own status. Colonel Mustard, a close friend. He left the SAS to form a private security company, advising foreign governments. The Reverend Green keeps the spiritual interests of the community at heart, a relentless campaigner to preserve the local heritage and wildlife. Professor Plum, an ambitious American business graduate with a keen eye for profit. He recognizes the value of friends in society. Ms. Scarlett, like her stepmother, Mrs. Peacock, enjoys a passion for men, although not all her past lovers are fond memories. Mrs. White, housekeeper and trusted friend, finds it difficult to keep her anger bottled up when causes she cares about are threatened. 6 people with murder on their minds.
Good evening. A murder has been committed at Arlington Grange, and tonight we'll solve that mystery. Who did it, with what weapon, and in which room? And while you play detective at home, 2 teams with me here hope to be 1 clue ahead of you. They're tonight's detectives. First, the next policeman who needs no further introduction, literally, John Stalker. John, when it came to murder, did you always catch your man?
More or less, yes, as a result of teamwork, of course. And talking of teamwork tonight, my teammate here is Judy Roberts, who comes from Hertfordshire. And Judy has been, on these murder weekends, a professional corpse.
What a strange hobby, Judy. What was the most inventive death you had to put up with?
I think probably a hatchet in the head or maybe the poison custard.
I think we'll try and keep that away from you tonight. Against you this evening and is BBC Television's star of Juliet Bravo, Anna Carteret. I would imagine you're no stranger to murder either.
In the studio, no. And with me tonight, I'm lucky enough to have Dr. David Weeks, who's a neuropsychologist, professional at the Royal Edinburgh Hospital.
Goodness me. David, have you had any murderous dealings with actors and actresses?
Yeah, one of the murder victims I've studied quite closely was an actress, and some of my private patients are Hollywood movie stars.
Goodness me. Our detectives. Our investigations indicate that tonight one of these 6 weapons was used to commit the crime. Was it a spanner, the shotgun, the poison? Was it the knife, a curtain tie-back, or this statuette? And there's another part of the mystery for our detectives this evening to solve. In which room at the Grange did the murder take place? Was it in the drawing room, the study, the kitchen, the dining room? Was it the billiard room, or in the library? And now to the evidence. In the few hours leading up to the murder, members of the Arlington Village Stop the Disco Action Group had been meeting at the Grange in an effort to stop property developer Mr. Hall from draining the village pond to build a discotheque. We joined Mrs. White at the threatened village pond.
Don't you worry. Mrs. Peacock won't let any money-grubbing developer ruin your pond. We're not having any disco in this village. What on earth?
Well, it is.
Land acquired for development. Is it?
This disco is the kind of development that is tearing the heart out of the countryside. Well, I will not let you destroy the fabric of my village.
Mrs. Peacock, let Mr. Hall speak. We must give him his say.
Look, can't we wait till Colonel Mustard gets here?
No, he's half an hour late as it is.
Well, he did call in to say he had a flat tire.
Yes, everybody understands that. But as chairman of this meeting, I can't wait. Mr. Hall, if you please.
Thank you, Vicar. What I'm saying is that what I have in mind will be good for the village. My leisure centre will be a great step forward for us.
Mr. Hall, where is the pond on the plan?
We found the scheme worked better minus water facilities.
Meaning?
to drain the pond.
But Mike only bought his cottage because of that pond. He likes to look at it when he's having his breakfast.
I'm afraid that Colonel Mustard's breakfasts are hardly my concern.
Nor ours. We're here for the good of the community and the rich heritage of our village life. Now we, at the Stop the Disco Action Group, will fight you every step of the way.
Mustn't stand in the way of progress.
Well, you call this progress? If you drain the pond, what happens to the village? What about the environment? And there's lots of wildlife depending on that pond. What about the ducks?
Ducks. Oh.
Mrs. Peacock, they've started already. He's only come here to distract you all. His men are in the village now, and they're draining the pond. Oh, my poor little ducks.
Well, ma'am, what have you got to say?
Well, what's a few ducks, more or less, when progress is at stake?
Progress? Profit, you mean? The ducks are God's creatures, too.
Going vegetarian now, are we, Vic?
Well, as a matter of fact...
And what about you, Prof? What are you doing here? I thought you'd had more sense.
Don't try to evade the issue.
Sense enough to know that profit isn't everything, Mr. Hall.
Well said, Professor. There are higher values.
If there's anything more valuable to a man than his property, I'd like to know what it is.
Well, come to church sometime and you might find out.
I bought that land fair and square. Didn't I, Professor? Now, no one tells me what to do with what's mine. You just keep your nose out of it, will you?
Don't you talk to Reverend Green like that. Mike Mustard will be here soon. We'll see how full of yourself you are then.
Ooh. Do you really want to threaten me with the Colonel, Vivian? Don't think that's a very good idea, do you?
How much, Mr. Hall?
What?
How much for the land and the ducks?
Ah. Now we're talking. Well, that depends, doesn't it? How much are you offering?
Lunch. Mr. Hall and I will take tea in my study. Yes, Mrs. Peacock.
Mrs. Peacock's generosity never ceases to amaze me.
I think she'll be the one amazed this time. That land costs a lot of money. I don't think she'll be able to afford it.
How much, Pete?
I feel like I need a breath of fresh air.
What's got into him? Speak to yourself, Vivian. He's evil, he is. My poor little ducks. It shouldn't be allowed. He'll have to be stopped. That's right. He'll have to be stopped.
You never used to say
No.
No, come on. Just have a little word with them, that's all.
Mr. Hall, you will find the washroom at the top of the stairs.
Already did, thanks. Well, I did. I wasn't in as much of a hurry as she seemed to be.
This way, please, Mr. Hall.
Well, I understand, but surely he can't afford to say no.
Oh, I'm afraid it looks as though he will. What is taking him so long? 1 or 2 phone calls, he said. I shall check my bill when it arrives. Nasty, greedy little man.
Maybe I should go and ask him to rejoin us.
Or perhaps I should have a very long chat with him about camels, rich men, and heaven.